Hello and a big warm welcome to you. My name's Marion Rose.
And I'm Lael Stone.
And today, as you can see from the title, we are talking about healing from big events because there's no shortage of those in the world right now.
That is exactly it. And I love that both Marion, you and I contacted each other uh, just at different times, but said we need to talk about these big events and what's going on in the world because there's a lot. Because Marion, you have just lived through a big event where your town and community has been severely flooded and there's been a lot of loss and there's been a lot going on. So we were like, okay, this is here. Let's talk a little bit more around how we heal, how we can support ourselves, how we can navigate the feelings and the loss that come from situations like this, and how we can support our children too when big events happen, how we can hold them and help them so that we don't have to, so it doesn't turn into, deeper trauma or anything like that. So shall we start, Marion? Do you want to tell about what your experience has been over these last 2 weeks?
Yes, and actually, even when you ask the question, I think this is one of the most important things that we need to talk about what's happened. We need to tell stories. So as soon as you said that, I thought, yes, I want to tell the whole story in much detail, which I won't do on the podcast. But we've had really, really heavy rain in where I am in the Northern Rivers in northern New South Wales. It's also been from further north and now it's going quite far south. So for several weeks. So yeah, I really want to tell the whole story. Anyway, how do I tell it? But basically, the neighbor knocked on the door at 5:30 in the morning and said, "Quick, it's flooded really high." So I rushed out the back and saw that my mum's house, she had a granny flat in my back garden, was 3 foot underwater. The bunny cages we have, well, the big enclosures, they were just about to get drowned. So I shouted to my son, Sonny! I quickly grabbed some big bins to put the bunnies in. We went and rescued the bunnies wading through this rainy water. And then when I got my mum, she said she put her feet out of bed and was surprised to find she was in water, trying to just get photos and seeing as I tell the story, I there's times where I minimize it and go, we're fine. And because there's so many people and there's a town near us where thousands of houses literally went completely under. So where people have lost everything. But it's been big for us, even though it wasn't that big, it's still been really big. So we've got stuff out and then it's just been a massive journey once the rain went down of clearing out all this mud and then discovering that the mud's really toxic after I've been walking around in it for 4 days and clearing and cleaning and 10 wash loads a day and cleaning up mold and every day discovering more and more. And at the same time, we also had a few other extra things, which was then there was no internet or phone service in the whole area. They shut the water ran out, clean drinking water ran out. So we just had a few, buckets. All the internet was down. So there was no cash. There was no, you couldn't buy stuff in shops on cards. It was only cash. The ATMs had run out of cash. I mean, it was just one thing after another. And just the extra things in our house of, this is the podcast has become my therapy session. This is very nice. Thanks, Lael.
I'm here and I'm listening.
Just all the little things, like there's certain circuits that are just gone. So just the everydayness, there was all this stress already, but just to actually, if I wanted to boil a kettle or make something, I need to get an extension lead every time and move the kettle over here and couldn't start the gas to heat the thing. Just like everything became really difficult. And my mum and I were quite often, responding quite reactively to each other, but with such love and compassion in that. But, just no, or, just what, just all of this. So anyway, it's been massive few 10 days really. The internet came back a couple of days ago. And then as the internet came back, just discovering more and more about how severe it's been in this community. People up in the hills still stranded, roads washed away, landslides, houses, down slopes. So just so much going on, so big. And I'm so grateful to aware parenting. I'm so grateful that I understand the power of crying, and the balance of attention. So that is so pivotal to understand, because what I found is it's often been where help has arrived, or gifts or offers, or that's when I burst into tears. So I'd been doing it pretty much all on my own with a bit of help for about 4 days, and a dear friend went and put my name on the list. So our local civic centre, there, all the communities, basically, it's been community people just travelling for hours to come and help, to come and clear up places for people. So one day I had 8 people just show up, and I just literally looked at them and just burst into tears. So it was that combination of the actual support and the love, and that I'm not doing it on my own, that supported the feelings to come out and be expressed. So that's happened several times, and every time that, someone else offers something, and which is really helpful to remember, just in any context in terms of aware parenting. If our children have got lots of upset feelings about anything, often what is really required is that loving connection. It's that offering of support that supports that balance of attention for the feelings to come out. It's not just about the feelings, it's the necessity of having love, support, offerings of help that actually helps the healing to happen. And what I've noticed each day, then I've become less and less reactive. Although yesterday I was trying to do some techie thing, I'm catching up on 10 days of work, and the computer thing wouldn't work, and I was just swearing. And I was like, oh, I clearly still got a few more feelings left here to express. So yeah, that's kind of the story so far. Thank you for listening, Lael.
Thank
And
you for
listeners,
sharing
thank
that.
you for my therapy session.
I think what you said right at the top is really important. We actually need to have our stories heard, and heard lovingly, and without any offerings of justification, or it'll be all right, or at least it's not that bad, or we need to be heard in all the parts that feel messy. And we need to be able to get angry about stuff that didn't work, and we need to feel really sad. And I think it's so important, isn't it, to really, really be heard. I found, especially when I worked in birth and I did a lot of birth debriefing, is when women would tell their birth stories and they felt it was safe to tell it, and they would really tell it, they would often say, that's the first time I've actually been able to tell it and not have to justify anything, or not have to brush over bits, but really tell the story. And there was something profoundly healing in that, to be seen, witnessed, and be heard within it. It's really big. It's really big. And I often think sometimes too, with children, that's why they might tell the same story over and over and over again, because perhaps they're not really feeling heard in some of those places. Because sometimes unknowingly, because we love our children so much and we want them to feel okay, we jump in with, oh, but sweetie, it's okay because of this, or, but it wasn't that bad. Or we jump in often to fix, or because we love them, that sometimes they don't really get to be heard, and sometimes they need to process and talk about it, which is, again, a beautiful healing mechanism for kids. And we often see that in play as well, which we talk about, that they will play the same games, they need to work through stuff as they're processing what's going on. So it's really big. It's that part of telling the story and being heard is so vital and so important. And everybody, particularly, where you live, Marion, and what's going on, is going to have a different story to tell, aren't they? And it's interesting. Like, I was aware of what was going on. I have quite a few friends who live up near you. And so I was checking in with everyone. And it's interesting when you're not in the story, but you're like, I feel so helpless. Like, what can I do? Like, on one day, I just threw money to as many places as I could, because I was like, I don't feel like I can do anything else. And yet I also could see, I wasn't able to get in a car and drive up and help. I just couldn't do that at this point. But seeing that people were doing that, seeing that people were organizing that help, like I'm really hearing, and what I'm witnessing is the community support that has come together from this is unlike anything ever before. Like, it's extraordinary, isn't it?
And I feel tearful as I hear you say that. And for me, it's something so incredible. I've never witnessed it to this extent before. Just, people literally driving for hours and hours and spending hours and hours and hours and going from one house to the next house. And these are really horrible jobs. Like, I was asking people to do, it's like clearing up mud that has got every kind of horribleness that you can think of. Like, these are not like little things. It's carrying whole houses of furniture. All the furniture at my mum's place needed to be carried up a hill, things like that. These are massive things, but there are so many people who just descended on the area wanting to help. It's phenomenal. The human spirit and the desire to contribute is just, I feel so touched, really.
And there's something in that, isn't there, that blows our hearts open when we witness that. Like, I watched something actually, I feel really teary. There was some islanders who were helping in one of the communities, and they were standing around and they were singing together. And I saw that video and I just burst into tears, because I was like, they know that helps, the singing and the coming together as community, to help people know that there's hope and we're here and we're holding you, and listening to them sing, they were so connected to their roots. And I was just like, this is where we see so much beauty, don't we? And that we, as much as we may have lived through something really challenging or horrific or tragic, all those kind of things, often the beauty of humans come forward, which bursts our hearts open, which adds to the healing.
So beautiful. I heard some stories of that as well. And I also think there's something about cultures that are still more intact in terms of community, that already know, they still remember. We sing when we're clearing up, when we're helping people, whereas I think for so many of us in this culture, these are things we're not really used to. We're not used to gathering together necessarily and doing things to help each other. So I think it's, perhaps it's a longer time ago that we know singing really helps. There are ways that make this even more healing.
Yeah. And of course, what we're talking about is this thing that has happened, in the last 2 weeks here in Australia. But there's things happening all the time, all around the world. There are fires and there are death, and there is even what we've lived through with COVID. There's been a lot of trauma and pain around that in the last 2 years. And, that's been, I really feel, particularly what the world's gone through in the last 2 years, with so much unknown, with so much fear that's been present, that is sitting in everybody's systems, whether we know it or not. I'm seeing it a lot at my school that I've got, with the children, with our teachers are observing that too, of just the different elements that are starting to come out now, as we seem to be going back to some form of normal, whatever normal is, and the residue of what that looks like, particularly living through stuff where there is so much unknown, there's pain, there's grief, there's loss, there's all those kind of things, and how we navigate it. So I wonder if we want to lean into, Marion, talking about as adults, what can we do to help ourselves heal and navigate big situations like this?
Yeah, well, I think the first one, things that we've already talked about, is talking, crying, laughing. I mean, I think, again, we've done so many podcasts about the power of laughter, but to understand that we might be in some really scary situation and we suddenly just laugh, and it seems like, why are we laughing? Because this just doesn't seem to fit. But laughter being such a release, and really understanding. It's interesting what just happened. I just heard a kind of really loud noise in my house, and I suddenly felt this spike of adrenaline and fear. I was like, oh, what's happened? And I just now can hear it's actually Feather, the Frenchie, the dogs, is kind of going, ah! So it's fine. But to really notice that if we are having responses like that, that tells us that there are feelings sitting there that really need to be expressed. Or the other day it started raining again, and I could feel this big fear. So if we're scared of something happening again, or we're scared, we're feeling that fear response much more, it really tells us we need to be talking, crying, raging, laughing, hugging, having close physical contact. All of these things are so necessary as part of the healing process, both for adults and children. It's the wondrousness that we're very similar in that respect.
And it makes me think about, in the context of children and adults as well, is sometimes, as you mentioned before, that beautiful balance of attention, which was someone offering you something, or someone gifting you something, or someone coming to help you, that allowed the feelings to come up. So for a lot of people, when there is a crisis or a tragedy, or we just get on with it because that's what we need to do for survival. So we kind of we put it on hold and we just keep going. And it's interesting, isn't it, that our culture has said, oh my God, that we've labeled that as resilience, right? We're so resilient. Look at them. They're just getting on with it. And actually I go, no, we just can't afford to feel it yet, right? Resilience is not the grit and the suck it up and I'll just get on with it. Resilience is the ability to feel the hard parts of it and to reach out for support and to be held in it and to move your way through it and continue forward. And it's a really good thing to know about us as humans, is that we need often the right timing in order to allow those feelings to come when it's right. And I think that's a really beautiful thing to remember with children. When there's been death, when there's been, a scary event, when something's going on, sometimes what happens is their little bodies or their nervous systems go, I can't go there yet, so I'm just going to wait. And our job as a parent is to not force that, not push it. So sometimes we'll see that when something big happens, we might say to children, well, how are you feeling and what's going on? And we push and poke and prod, trying to get them to talk about what it is, but they're not ready yet. We'd be much better off keeping on creating more safety, more connection, more play, more touch, all those beautiful things that bring that safety to the child. So then they go, okay, now I can actually feel what I need to. Or it may be you set a limit over something random, like we're not going to have more ice cream. And then they have this enormous reaction. And we often can get a sense, this is here it is. Here's the story coming out. And I think it's a really important thing to remember as parents, to be patient, to trust our kids' timing when it comes to healing, and that sometimes the only thing we can do is just keep on focusing on connection and safety and that beautiful holding to and letting them know, I'm here when you're ready. I'm here when you're ready. And that can be really hard to do.
I love what you're talking about. To me, it's really about really trusting amazing systems. I know you talk about being in balance, but we talk about, in the immediate aftermath of something happening like this, often we need to either move into adrenaline because we need to. So we need to get stuff done. We need to be doing things to get out of the situation or to actually deal with it. Or we will dissociate. And again, this is whether we're an adult or a child. So we'll be very quiet. You might see children being taken out of these situations that are going on in the world and perhaps being surprised at what they look quite calm. What's going on? They seem fine. But to understand that that is part of our body's amazing systems to actually survive and get through that situation. And exactly as you said, there will come a time then where the next part shows up, which is actually the release of all those stress hormones, of all that fight or flight response, of all that the body's been holding onto, the tension, and that needs to come out through the crying, through the raging. But these are all things that we can really trust, that our bodies know how to do all of this stuff, just as they know how to mobilize to get out of a rainy building, or to just be really quiet because someone might hear, or whatever it is. We also know exactly how to heal from those experiences and situations, given the right support, or given the matching support and love, which is what our job is as parents. The tricky thing, of course, is if we've all been through the same thing, is, it's back to that really big cliche, isn't it, about the oxygen mask in a plane. Like, as adults, we really need to have received our own listening, done our own crying, told our own stories enough to be really available. And children will wait for that time. They will wait till we have actually enough capacity or spaciousness in ourselves to be able to listen to them having a big cry or a big rage over something apparently small. So it's so essential that we attend to that for ourselves, isn't it?
And I think, how we talk about play so often as well, the beautiful magic of playing, coming back to what we talk about all the time, is children know what they need to do to heal. They do. And when we give them the right space to do it, they will often orchestrate that. And so play, because of course that is just one of their most magnificent languages, is one of the best ways for them to move through big traumas. And so, you know, I'm sure in your community, there's plenty of kids playing floods and rains at the moment. There was a lot of kids playing COVID for a long time. There is a lot of kids playing fires. You know, I had horrific bushfires here in Australia a few years ago. There was a lot of kids playing fires and rescues and all those kind of things. And they are a wonderful way for children to make sense and process what is happening at this time is through the play. And, you know, as we both always talk about, if you want to know what's going on with a child, just sit and watch them play and observe and see part of what they're processing, what they're working through. And they may need to play this game again and again and again as they are making sense of it, as they are integrating what has happened. And this can also apply to playing hospitals. If your child has had to go to hospital for something, it can be playing dead. You know, we've done a podcast on death, and, you know, I've shared stories about watching my children play games around death when they were with a close friend who died. And, you know, it is really on some level getting out of the way to allow them to process in the way that they know best. I mean, we have to create the safety, and obviously, you know, we often sometimes need to be really close by, but can we move into really trusting that their bodies and their systems know what to do in the right circumstances to help them process?
It really comes back, doesn't it, again, to trust, to be in the space ourselves, and also to know when we do, you know, how much we need to come in and support, because sometimes play can be repetitive, but it has more of a stuck flavor and the healing isn't happening. So sometimes we may need to move in and actually come in and do some paraversal games where they are you know, they are the doctor, and, you know, they're doing funny things to us and we're making funny noises, or, you know, so sometimes it's also really listening to ourselves and trusting ourselves. When do we actually need to step in more? What is required here to provide this environment so that they can do what their systems know exactly how to do? So it's our job, isn't it, to be attending to that. Is there, you know, is there more I need to be doing here? Do I need to attend to things in myself? What is required to provide this beautiful environment for them?
Yes, I love that. I love that. And I think this is also a beautiful, gentle reminder to us as parents when we have navigated something really big. And of course, our thoughts will often go to, my goodness, the kids, like, how do we support them? It can be very easy to forget what we need in those moments as well. And that, as you said before, we have to put that oxygen mask on ourselves. So, what do we need to be heard? How do we feel our feelings? What support do we need so that we can be that for our children if they need as well? And I think, you know, as parents, we so often put our needs to the side to hold our children. But when we're moving through something like this, a tragedy or something on that level, you know, it's really, we have to support ourselves massively so we can be there to hold the kids.
It's vital. We're just not able to do it. And that also counts for everyone I help other people. You know, I know for me now, I want to be going off and helping people who've had, you know, much worse experiences than I have. And I just know it's not the time yet. I will be, and I want to, but I actually need to be doing more of my own healing and processing before I actually go and expose myself to more of what's happened. So again, it's really that nuance, listening into ourselves, like where am I in this? What do I need? How much am I really, do I have a really big full yes to go, or am I coercing myself or shooting myself? It's so important to listen to our beautiful bodies, and we really do know, don't we? Really know.
Yes, I think that's a really beautiful part, is particularly when something big happens and we go, well, I could go and do this, but is that going to serve us in those moments? And do we need to pause a little bit? I think that's such beautiful wisdom in that. Yeah. Oh, it's been a big time, hasn't it? Yeah, really big. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to offer, Marion, around, you know, your experience or what you want to share with others?
I think there's something about, you know, without bypassing or stepping over, and, you know, in the way you were talking right at the beginning, this isn't about just, you know, it's fine, or have you thought about this, but also seeing if we can hold in amongst the grief and the overwhelm and that rage and the frustration, the places where there might be, we might feel more loving, or we might feel more powerful, or we might feel more hope, or we might feel the possibility for change. So, you know, what I'm passionate about is that including all feelings and welcoming all feelings, which may mean as well, this isn't just about welcoming all the grief and the overwhelm, the sadness and the loss, but actually also opening spaces up for those moments where we're just, you know, grateful to be alive, or just happy to be cuddled up, or, you know, to have, I know for me, for days I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that we are actually in our house still, and so many people aren't, or that we have electricity, or some electricity when so many don't. So it's like not bypassing those moments of gratitude or joy, or just like, you know, the it's often those you know, these almost these liminal times, aren't they, that they also have such possibility for joy and for love, and for, you know, when we kind of get broken wide open, that there's wonder and magic in that as well. So I really, so I want to invite the openness to that as well, if that's, the openness is there for that. I'm not expressing it as clearly, but
No, I get it. I really love that, because there's real truth in that, in amongst the pain and the hurt. Sometimes there is just the most beautiful gifts, and sometimes we can't see them yet, and sometimes it's only after. And but I think it exists in polarities, doesn't it? That it's there. I think that's a really beautiful reminder to feeling that. And there's those other elements too of, we talked about this before we started, of other people have it way worse off than what we've got it, and we can really minimize, oh, it's not that bad, but actually your feelings are still very real and valid, and they should be heard and listened to, and that it is still a loss, or there still is grief, or there still is pain, it still exists. So it's important not to bypass it, no matter what. Yeah.
Probably in any situation that we're experiencing, there's probably always someone else who's suffering more, probably always, even if it's horrific. So, you know, yeah, we really need to welcome experiences. I think I also want to add something else to that as well, which is, you know, in the everydayness of life, we can be so busy, and, you know, we talk a lot about control patterns here. You know, we suppress feelings, or we maybe disconnect from ourselves or our families or our bodies or the land that we live in. And there is also something about these times, and I think particularly globally, the times we're going through, that also do invite us to actually connect with, you know, what's really important to me here. And so many of the things that we perhaps think are important, I know for me that the last week it's been like, you know, couldn't care less about so many of those things. What I care about is, you know, are we safe? Do we have shelter? Do we have water? Do we have food? You know, to actually come back to what's really important, the closeness, the love, the community, family. And actually, I think again, there's gifts there without bypassing all the other stuff. But yeah, there's wonder in that too.
That is such beautiful reminders. Yes. What is important? Yes. It's really beautiful. Wow. All right. Is there anything else you want to offer, Marion?
Well, I suppose that would, to go on from there as we move towards completion, is if you've seen things going on, and that, you know, there are so many things that you could be watching right now and seeing going on in the world, and you've imagined, well, what if you were there? What if you were experiencing that? What would be most important to you? Would it be you know, holding the hand of your child, or just giving your child a hug, or carrying them, or whatever it is? Would that be the most important thing? And can you gather the beauty of those moments without needing to go through horrific stress or trauma, or, you know, whatever it is? Can you remember those beautiful things, even in the midst of kind of the everydayness of life?
That's beautiful. Well, I know we have a lot of amazing people who listen to our podcast, and so on behalf of them and me, I'm sending you a lot of love, Marion, for the journey that you guys have been on, and for all those who are going through some really big stuff right now. That there is a lot of love and compassion and holding out there, even energetically. And thank you for sharing your story with us, and how that is for you. You know, I know you're still coming out the other side of this, and there may be other layers that'll come and all those kind of things. So thank you for yeah, just sharing where that is in this beautiful raw moment.
Thank you for listening, lovely Lael. And thank you, lovely listeners, for listening too.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. I hope that this has brought some insight or comfort. No matter where you are in the world at the moment, this may be one that you may listen to at another time if other things are going on, because it all feels pretty big right now in the world. So, you know, I guess my last little message is this: is just don't forget how powerful we are and how we are designed to heal and how we are designed to be together and in community and supporting and loving each other. And it's pretty extraordinary what we can achieve when we do that. Yeah.
And I want to add one more thing, which is actually when we trust these systems that we are inbuilt with, and we do the crying and the raging, whether we're an adult or a child, we actually become more resilient. That is actually, it's through the adversity and not just, you know, she'll be fine, mate, but through the crying and the raging and the hardness, we come out the other side and we are more resilient. We are, exactly as you said, more powerful. So yeah.
Thanks for being here, everybody. We hope you are all safe and well and being gentle and kind and compassionate with yourselves.
So much love to all of you.